Multiple global agencies are calling 2026 the breaking point for food supply stability. With reserves at a 9-year low and extreme weather hammering crop yields, we're heading straight into the most unpredictable year of the decade. Before that chaos hits, you need to stock the 11 essential items that will carry your family through the worst of it. And wait until you hear item number 10. Almost nobody is prepared for that one. Number 1. Rice. When an economic collapse begins tightening its grip, the very first cracks always show up in the basics. The foods we assume will always be there. And nothing is more deceptively ordinary, more quietly powerful than rice. You walk past it 100 times without thinking, but when the system shakes, rice is one of the first things to disappear. We saw it during the lockdowns in Asia when shelves were stripped clean within hours. And in the US, families just like yours watched aisles go bare for weeks. In Wisconsin, a woman named Sarah walked into her grocery store in March 2025, only to find the entire rice section empty, no restock for 3 straight weeks. She never imagined something so basic could simply vanish. But here's what most people don't realize. Rice feeds nearly half the planet. Global supplies are under pressure from droughts, export restrictions, and shrinking yields. That means higher prices, tighter availability, and sudden outages that catch unprepared families completely off guard. And in a crisis, rice becomes more than a side dish, it becomes security. Properly stored white rice can last up to 30 years, which means a single purchase today could still be feeding your family in 2055. That is not just food. That's a long-term survival asset. Most Americans have maybe 1 pound of rice at home. That's for servings, barely enough for a day or two if things go bad. But one adult needs roughly 300 pounds per year to maintain basic calorie intake during a prolonged crisis. That sounds huge, but broken down into 20-pound bags, it's manageable and affordable. You don't need special skills or equipment, just airtight containers, Mylar bags, and oxygen absorbers to create a long-lasting pantry foundation. Economic disruptions hit hardest when people rely on fragile supply chains. Rice gives you independence, stability, and calories when every dollar matters. So here's your action step for the week. Grab 1 20-pound bag of plain white rice and store it properly. It's cheap, it's reliable, and when shortages hit again, you'll be grateful you acted before everyone else woke up. Number 2, dried beans and lentils. If rice is the foundation of survival, then dried beans and lentils are the structure that keeps everything standing when the world around you starts to shake. In every economic crisis, from the Great Depression to modern supply chain breakdowns, protein is always the first nutrient people struggle to afford. Meat prices skyrocket, grocery stores ration supplies, and families are left with empty fridges and limited options. But beans? Beans stay cheap, stay available longer, and deliver the kind of nutrition that can literally keep you alive when everything else becomes unaffordable. Just last month, a family in Oregon got snowed in for 3 full weeks, no electricity, no gas, and completely cut off from stores. Their neighbors panicked, but they stayed fed because they had a single 50-pound bag of black beans paired with rice. Their story went viral not because it was dramatic, because it proved something simple. A basic stockpile can turn a potential crisis into an inconvenience. There's a reason astronauts, soldiers, and emergency responders rely on beans. When you pair beans with rice, you create a complete protein. The same quality you'd get from eating Steak-X, it costs pennies instead of dollars. And with livestock feed shortages, drought-stricken farmland, and rising transportation costs, meat is quickly becoming a luxury item. But a 25-pound bag of pinto beans? Still around $30 and capable of feeding a family for weeks? Even better. Dried beans and lentils have a shelf life of 10 to 20 years when stored in airtight containers with oxygen absorbers. They're simple, reliable, and nearly impossible to beat when money is tight and calories matter. Lentils cook fast, require less fuel, and don't need soaking, making them perfect during power outages. Beans give you fiber, protein, and long-burning energy, keeping you full and focused even under stress. If an economic collapse forces you to tighten your budget or stretch meals further, beans give you control when the rest of the world feels unstable. Don't you wait for shortages to hit your store. Pick up a 20 to 25-pound bag of dried beans or lentils this week and secure the protein your family will depend on when times get tough. Number 3, canned meats. When an economic crisis hits full force, fresh meat is always one of the first casualties. Prices explode, shelves empty instantly, and what little is available becomes too expensive for the average family. We've seen this pattern before. During the last major supply chain breakdown, more than 10 million hogs were eliminated from the system, creating a shortage of over 2 million pounds of meat almost overnight. And when JBS, the world's largest meat packer, was hit by a ransomware attack, it took just one digital strike to disrupt global meat production and send prices surging. That's how fragile the system is. One attack, one shutdown, one bad month, and the meat supply collapses. With 2025 already facing a projected 500,000-ton decrease in beef production, we're heading straight into another squeeze. Fresh meat shortages aren't hypothetical anymore. They're predictable. And when the price of beef shoots up 50%, 80%, even 100% in a matter of weeks as it has before, families who depend on fresh meat find themselves in real trouble fast. But canned meat? That's the great equalizer. It doesn't care if the grid fails, if trucks stop running, or if grocery stores limit purchases. It's already cooked, already preserved, and ready to eat cold straight from the can if necessary. In any crisis, power outage, food shortage, economic downturn, canned meat becomes a priceless lifeline. Whether it's chicken, tuna, salmon, beef, or even Spam, these compact cans deliver protein that lasts 2 to 5 years or more when stored properly. They're versatile too. Mix with rice, toss into soups, add 2 canned vegetables, or eat plain when you need quick calories. When fresh groceries vanish, canned meat gives you stability and nutrition without fear of spoilage. And here's the strategic advantage. The canned meat market is already growing because the quiet preppers, the ones who remember 2020, are stocking up before the next shock hits. Prices today are normal. Availability is normal. That won't last. If economic conditions worsen, you'll want real protein you can count on. So here's your move. Buy a week or 2 of canned meat, now enough to feed your family if the fresh supply dries up. This is one of the most valuable, crisis-proof food investments you can make. Number 4. Wheat, flour, and grains when economies break down and supply chains fracture. The first foods to vanish after rice and beans are anything made from wheat flour. Pasta, bread, crackers, tortillas, even basic baking mixes. People don't realize how deeply wheat is woven into their daily survival until the shelves go bare. And with global production tightening fast, the window to secure affordable flour is closing quicker than most understand. Russia and Ukraine together produce nearly 1/5 of the world's cereal grains. That's not a small dent. That's a massive chunk of global food security. And between war disruptions, export restrictions, and climate-driven yield declines, we're watching the strongest wheat-producing engine in the world sputter. Even countries far from conflict zones are reporting lower harvests due to heat waves, drought, and unpredictable weather cycles. The supply problem is real, and it's spreading. People remember the pandemic sourdough craze, but they forget something important. Back then, shelves were empty only because of panic buying. Today, shortages aren't theoretical, they're built into the numbers. We are facing real production cuts. That means flour prices rising from $3 a bag to $10 or even $15 in the coming months. ISN. T, an exaggeration at S, the likely trajectory if global yields continue to drop. But here's where preparation becomes power. Wheat stored properly can last 10 to 12 years, especially if you invest in wheat berries, which stay fresh much longer than pre-milled flour. With a simple hand-crank grain mill, you can produce fresh, nutritious flour anytime. No dependency on stores, no price shocks, no panic. If that sounds extreme, think about how many foods rely on flour: bread, pancakes, pasta, muffins, tortillas, biscuits, even thickening sauces and soups. When flour becomes scarce, comfort foods disappear, and everyday meals get a lot harder to stretch. Storing flour is simple. Put 25 to 50 pounds of all-purpose flour or wheat berries into airtight containers with bay leaves or oxygen absorbers, then keep them in a cool, dry space. That's it. And once stored, you've created a buffer against inflation and shortages that protects you when others are scrambling. This week's action step is simple. Buy a bulk bag of flour better. Wheat, berries, and lock in a decade of food stability before prices explode. Number 5, salt. In every economic downturn, people rush for canned goods, grains, and protein, but they overlook one of the most powerful survival tools ever discovered. Salt. It's cheap. It's everywhere, and because it seems so ordinary, most shoppers never think twice about it. But history proves that when supply chains falter, salt becomes priceless. During the California gold rush of 1847, miners weren't dying because of accidents or disease. They were dying because they ran out of salt. Without it, the human body can't hold water, can't regulate muscles, and can't maintain proper nerve function. They were literally dehydrating from the inside out, even with water in their hands. And the warning signs are showing again. Just last winter, America's largest salt mine had to ship 2.1 million tons of salt, more than the entire previous year, just to keep up with demand. When a product that never spoils starts seeing shortages, that's a signal you don't ignore. Salt isn't just seasoning during crisis and economic collapse. It becomes your hydration stabilizer, your electrolyte source, your food preservative, and your longest-lasting asset. Salt has no expiration date. None. Properly stored, it will outlive you, your children, and probably the building you live in. With meat prices rising and refrigeration becoming less reliable during grid failures, salt becomes essential for preserving food when power disappears. For thousands of years, our ancestors survived winters and wars by salting fish, meat, and vegetables, creating food reserves that lasted months, sometimes longer. You could do the same with nothing more than basic table salt. And unlike trendy survival foods that cost a fortune, a large container of iodized salt still costs only a couple of dollars. That's why preppers consider it more valuable than gold. Your body needs sodium for brain function, muscle movement, and nutrient absorption, especially during stress when electrolytes drain faster. And if economic instability disrupts food supplies, maintaining hydration and health will be critical. Storing salt is simple. Buy several large containers, keep them dry, and stack them away. No mylar, no oxygen absorbers, no refrigeration required. It's the easiest long-term preparation you'll ever do. Your action step is clear. Add at least 3 large containers of iodized salt to your next grocery trip. This tiny investment could save your food, your health, and your life when everything else breaks down. Number 6. Vegetable oils. When an economic collapse pushes food prices through the roof, people panic by carbs and canned goods, but they forget about one of the most crucial survival resources: cooking oil. Without oil, your ability to cook, bake, fry, preserve, and stretch meals collapses instantly. Oil carries calories, makes bland foods edible, and supports everything from bread making to sautéing vegetables. And right now, cooking oil is sitting in a danger zone most shoppers don't even see coming. Canada, the world's leading producer of canola oil, suffered a devastating crop failure, slashing global supply. At the same time, South America was hit by a brutal drought that wiped out massive portions of its soybean harvest. 2 major pillars of global oil production gone in a single season. We're watching the same pattern that led to the 2021 to 2022 global oil price spikes repeat itself. Only this time with deeper shortages and higher inflation. What used to cost $4 has now climbed to $8 per bottle, and experts expect prices to rise even higher as the world fights over limited supply. Oil isn't optional in a crisis. When you're relying on rice, beans, canned vegetables, and flour to get through economic instability, fat becomes your most precious calorie source. Your body uses fat for long-lasting energy, brain function, and nutrient absorption. Without it, even a full plate of carbs leaves you tired, weak, and mentally foggy. In survival conditions where stress is high and calories matter, oil can literally make the difference between staying functional and burning out. Shelf life matters too. Most vegetable oils last 2 to 3 years when stored in a cool, dark place. And with proper rotation, you can maintain a steady supply without waste. Whether it's canola, olive oil, vegetable oil, coconut oil, or peanut oil, the key is quantity and consistency. A family could survive months on the calories stored in a few bottles of oil if everything else becomes scarce. If empty shelves return, or if inflation pushes essentials completely out of reach, you'll want oil more than almost anything else in your kitchen. Don't wait until prices hit double digits and panic buying begins. Your move this week is simple. Grab 3 to 4 large bottles of your primary cooking oil and store them properly. It's one of the safest, smartest, most impactful food investments you can make before the next supply shock hits. Number 7. Canned vegetables. When an economic crisis hits, most people fixate on calories. Rice, beans, pasta, meat. But what they forget, and what becomes painfully obvious during long-term shortages, is that your body doesn't just need calories. It needs nutrients, vitamins, and minerals to keep your immune system strong when stress, uncertainty, and poor diet start wearing you down. And that's where canned vegetables become an absolute lifesaver, one of the most underrated survival items in every grocery store. Think back to the last major supply disruption. Fresh produce sections looked like they'd been hit by a swarm of locusts. Shelves stripped bare, wilted leftovers, nothing reliable for weeks at a time. But right there, untouched and ignored by most shoppers, sat aisle after aisle of perfectly good canned vegetables, nutritious, affordable, and shelf-stable. The people who grabbed them early weren't just lucky, they were smart. Here's what most don't realize. Canned vegetables often hold more nutrients than the fresh produce that's been sitting on trucks, docks, and storage warehouses for weeks. They're processed at peak ripeness, sealed, and protected from oxidation, meaning the vitamin content stays stable even through long-term storage. And during a collapse or recession, when stress is draining your body faster than usual, those vitamins become essential for staying healthy and mentally sharp. Canned green beans, corn, carrots, peas, spinach, mixed vegetables, these aren't just side dishes. They're your backup vitamins when supply chains fail. And their shelf life. Typically 2 to 5 years, sometimes longer if stored in a cool, dry place. They require no refrigeration, no special storage, no preparation tools. You can eat them straight from the can if you have to, which is critical during power outages or fuel shortages. They also stretch meals dramatically. A single can of vegetables mixed into rice, pasta, beans, or canned meat adds bulk, flavor, and nutrition, turning a basic survival meal into something sustaining. In a world where every calorie counts, but every nutrient counts even more, canned vegetables give you balance, energy, and health. Prices are still stable now, but as transportation costs rise and harvests shrink, even these basics will tighten. Don't wait for empty shelves to remind you how important micronutrients are. Your action step: pick up at least a dozen cans of mixed vegetables this week. It's cheap insurance for your health when fresh food disappears. Number 8. Powdered milk in an economic collapse. Luxury disappears first, but what most people forget is that milk isn't a luxury. Especially for families with children, elderly relatives, or anyone who relies on a stable source of calcium, vitamin D, and protein. When the dairy section empties, and it will, your entire meal plan shifts instantly. Suddenly, you can't make pancakes, bread, soups, cereals, or even basic comfort foods. And during shortages, milk becomes one of the hardest items to replace. That's why powdered milk transforms from an afterthought into a survival essential. During the last major supply disruption, many stores went to full weeks without a single drop of fresh milk. Parents were driving from town to town, desperate to find something for their kids. But one neighbor mentioned in the transcript was completely calm. She had 2 big containers of powdered milk tucked away in her pantry. While other families scrambled, hers kept eating normally. No panic, no rushing from store to store, no worrying about spoiled dairy. That's the power of preparation. Powdered milk isn't glamorous, but it's one of the most versatile, nutrient-dense, and long-lasting foods you can store. When kept airtight and dry, it lasts 1 to 2 years, often even longer if properly sealed in mylar with oxygen absorbers. And unlike fresh milk, which spoils within days, powdered milk is stable, lightweight, and nearly impossible to waste. But the real value comes from its usefulness in survival cooking. You can turn powdered milk into yogurt, add it to oatmeal, thicken soups, enrich bread dough, mix it into mashed potatoes, or give kids the essential nutrients they'll be missing when fresh dairy vanishes. It even boosts the protein level of baked goods and smoothies, a lifesaver when other protein sources get expensive. And during food shortages, nutrient deficiencies hit fast. Vitamin D and calcium drop, immune systems weaken, and energy levels fall. Powdered milk fills that gap better than almost any other budget-friendly item you can buy. It's not about taste it's about survival nutrition. Right now, powdered milk is still easy to find and reasonably priced. But based on global dairy production forecasts and transportation costs, that could change rapidly. Your action step is simple and essential. Grab 1 or 2 large containers of powdered milk this week and store them in a cool, dry place. It's insurance your family will be thankful for when fresh dairy becomes scarce or unaffordable. Number 9, sugar and honey. When economies collapse and supply chains seize up, most people focus on staples like rice, beans, and flour. But they overlook one of the most powerful survival assets you can store: sugar and honey. These 2 simple items do far more than sweeten your food. They become energy sources, natural preservatives, medical tools, and even barter currency when times get rough. And right now, the global sugar supply is flashing red warnings most shoppers never hear about. India, the world's second-largest sugar producer, has banned sugar exports for the 2nd year in a row. That's not a minor decision. That's a country of over 1 billion people saying, we need this supply for ourselves. Meanwhile, Brazil, the #1 sugar producer on Earth, is battling severe drought that has crippled harvests. Less sugar on the global market means higher prices, fewer imports, and sudden gaps on store shelves. It's the exact scenario that leads to panic buying and massive inflation. But sugar isn't just about sweetness. In a crisis, your body goes into stress mode. You burn through energy faster. You need quick, reliable fuel, especially if you're rationing meals or doing more physical work. Sugar becomes an instant energy source that can keep you sharp and steady when your calorie intake drops. And honey? Honey is practically immortal. Archaeologists found honey in Egyptian tombs over 3,000 years old, still perfectly edible. Nothing else in your pantry comes close to that kind of shelf life. Honey is also antibacterial, making it useful for minor wound care, sore throats, coughs, and infections when medical supplies are limited. It's food and medicine in one jar. Both sugar and honey excel at preserving other foods. With sugar, you can make jams, syrups, fruit preserves, and even extend the life of fresh produce. Before refrigeration, sugar was how families made food last through harsh winters and economic instability. In a barter economy, a very real possibility in severe collapse, sugar and honey become high-valued trade goods. People will trade canned foods, grains, even labor for a jar of honey or a bag of sugar when supplies get tight. Storing them is incredibly easy. Sugar needs nothing but a dry container. Honey just needs a sealed lid. They never spoil, never go bad, and never lose value. Your move this week is simple. Buy a 10 to 20 pounds bag of sugar and at least 1 or 2 jars of raw honey. These tiny purchases give you energy, medicine, preservation, power, and trade value when the world around you becomes uncertain. Number 10, coffee and tea. When people think about survival food, they rarely think about coffee and tea. But during an economic collapse, these 2 items transform from everyday habits into powerful psychological lifelines. When stress is high, sleep is irregular, and routines crumble. That warm cup in the morning becomes more than a drink, it becomes a sense of normalcy, grounding, and control. And that matters more than most people realize. During Hurricane Katrina, one survivor said the hardest part of the first week was on tea. The heat or the damage it was not having his morning coffee. That's how deeply these rituals affect us. Now layer that emotional need on top of a real-world supply crisis. Brazil and Colombia, 2 of the world's largest coffee producers, have been hit by severe weather disruptions that have slashed yields and pushed global prices upward. When Brazil struggles, the whole world feels it. Coffee prices are already spiking, and experts expect even more volatility this year. And tea isn't safe either. Major producers like India, China, and Kenya are battling unpredictable weather patterns and rising production costs. In a crisis, caffeine becomes more than a treat. It's a functional tool. It helps you stay alert when decisions matter. It sharpens your mind when stress fog hits. It gives you the energy to keep working, repairing, or taking care of your family when days feel endless. And unlike fresh foods, coffee and tea store extremely well. With airtight containers and cool conditions, they can last years without losing quality. But here's where it gets even more valuable. Barter potential. In a collapsed or strained economy, people will trade real, tangible goods food tools. Labor for something that restores comfort and routine. A bag of ground coffee, a jar of instant granules, or a pouch of loose-leaf tea becomes a luxury item with enormous trade value. Stocking both instant and regular varieties gives you flexibility. Instant is crucial for emergencies, power outages, and fast prep. Beans or loose-leaf tea offer long-term storage, richer flavor, and higher barter value. And even small amounts can lift morale in ways nothing else can. With prices rising and weather instability worsening, the window for affordable supply is closing. Your action step this week? Grab a pack of instant coffee, a bag of ground beans or whole beans, and a box or two of your favorite tea. Store them airtight. In a crisis, these simple items could be worth far more than their price tag today. Number 11. High-energy bars and nuts in every major crisis: economic collapse, grid failure, natural disaster. The people who fare the best aren't the ones with the fanciest gear. They're the ones who have portable, calorie-dense food ready to grab at a moment's notice. And nothing delivers that combination better than high-energy bars and nuts. When you're exhausted, stressed, or forced to move quickly, these compact foods become literal lifesavers. They require no cooking, no fuel, no preparation, just open, eat, and keep moving. During the Texas freeze of 2021, many families found themselves without power for 5 days. Store shelves were empty, gas lines stretched for miles, and people were melting snow for water. But one woman mentioned in the transcript stayed surprisingly stable. Why? She had stocked up on protein bars and trail mix, while others were eating cold beans straight from the can. She had nutrient-dense snacks that kept her energy up and her mind sharp. That's the advantage of thinking ahead. Nuts are one of the most calorie-rich survival foods on the planet. Almonds, peanuts, cashews, walnuts, they're packed with healthy fats, protein, vitamins, and minerals. A handful can keep you going for hours, especially when meals are scarce or cooking isn't possible. And when stored in airtight containers or vacuum-sealed bags, they stay fresh for 6 months or longer, depending on the type. Rotate them every few months, and you'll always have a steady, portable supply. High-energy bars are equally important, but not the candy bar-style ones loaded with sugar and nothing else. Look for bars with whole grains, oats, nuts, seeds, and at least 16 grams of whole grain per serving. These bars are designed to deliver sustained energy during emergencies, heavy physical work, or long days without proper meals. And unlike canned foods, they weigh almost nothing, making them essential for bug-out bags, car kits, emergency backpacks, or quick evacuations. In a severe economic downturn, these foods become powerful barter items too. People recognize their value instantly. And a single bag of almonds or a few protein bars could be traded for canned goods, tools, or help when resources tighten. You never know when you'll have to leave your home, shelter in place, or navigate a sudden disruption. Portable calories give you resilience, mobility, and confidence, no matter how chaotic things get. Your action step is simple. Buy a variety pack of energy bars and 2 to 3 pounds of your favorite nuts this week. Store some at home, some in your car, and some in your go bag. When crisis hits, these small items will give you strength when you need it most. In a collapsing economy, preparation isn't panic, it's protection. Every item you stock today buys you security, stability, and peace of mind tomorrow. Don't wait for empty shelves or soaring prices to remind you why preparedness matters. Start small, stay consistent, and build your resilience one step at a time. Your future depends on the actions you take right now. Hope is not a strategy, preparation is. So choose one item today, commit to it, and begin building the safety your family deserves.